Hey, good evening everyone. Sorry this is a little bit later than normal. Today was my birthday, so we kind of took a easy day. I am 30 years old today, which feels incredibly old for me, but then I get a lot of people say that is young. Don't comment at all. But anyway, I still feel old, but we had a great day. We went out for pizza tonight at a local wood-fired pizza place, and had fun doing that, and came home and sat down and watched Mona, the new movie with the kiddo, and she thought it was so much fun. She standing there singing all the songs and dancing like they were, so we had a blast. But I wanted to get to a couple questions tonight, two good questions, I thought. Bert Weston asks, on the Market Garden Success Group, he's like, I just thought of a question. I still think drip irrigation has merit. We have a new pump that is meant for higher pressure overhead irrigation. Pump guy said the pump in place is not meant to drip and could burn out. I get it. Drip uses very low pressure. Could existing pump fill large IBC tanks which are elevated on stand? Those high white square tanks. Then pump would work as should. Tanks would release water at low pressure. Yeah, but I guess what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of sketch an entire system for you, because normally what I'd like to see, and depending on how big this pump is, normally we like to see a pressure tank put in the system, and I believe, Bert, you said you're in Florida, so it doesn't seem like you'd have much chance of it freezing, and if you did, you could always just leave a valve cracked open and just keep it going. So let's go ahead and sketch this out a bit. Make sure you guys can see the board there. Alright, so we've got our well, and your well can be a number of different depths. Up in New York where we are, sometimes we're going 900 to 1,200 feet deep. Some places you are only going about 100 feet deep or 50 feet deep. So your distance in your well can change, and pumps, when the well guys are sizing them, they always size them to the depth of your well. So, this pump that's 100 feet deep is probably going to be a lot smaller than this one that's 900 to 1,200 feet deep. Now, the other thing to think about when you're talking about a well is your static level. So, you may have a 1,200 foot well, but your water may be up here around 300 feet. And so then you have this 900 feet of water that's just sitting in the well at all times. And so that helps with your recovery time. If you get all this water, your pumps may be down here somewhere, and so you can pump all that water down before it has to start drawing new water into the well. And so there's all formulas and different types of casement and stuff for that, and all how that works. One of the things I do have a hard time with is they're like, oh, so now I've got this, but let's say I need to pump up a hill, and so now I've got 150 feet here. 150. Well, that's a ton of height. But let's think about this. If we're pumping up 600 feet, another 150 feet, as long as the well pump is sized for it, is not a problem at all. Granted, with that 150 feet, you're looking at about 75 to 85 psi, and if you want 45 psi up here, you need at least 150 psi pipe. And there's all different thicknesses and all that kind of stuff. So you can, add that height and do your calculations and see where you are with that. Like some of the blue lay flat, it's only rated for like 100, 150 psi. So that's not going to work, if you're trying to pump up all the way up here, because it's just going to keep blowing apart down in here. So, all right, I hope that makes sense. Now, in pumps, there's a lot of different types. So you've got, if you have an incredibly shallow well, you may just put your pipe down into the water and have your pump sitting actually on the surface. But if you have a deeper well, you're probably going with a deep well pump. So there's regular pumps, and then there's variable speed pumps. So the regular pumps, when you turn them on, they come on, and they push water out of the ground. The variable speed pumps, they're normally on 24/7 or close to that. They're on a lot more, and they're just running that turbine variable speed. So if you draw more water, they push more water. If you're not drawing as much water, they push less water, depending on your PSI that you set it at. More expensive, the larger you get, the more economical they are. So for a normal water system, let's say for like a house. And so when we were in New York, we had 3 wells on our property for our farm and for our house. And so obviously you've got your pump down here. Your pump is usually this really long thing. let's see if I can clean this up. Kind of show it a little bit better here. You've got your dirt level right here. You've got your well top casing right there, and usually about 4 to 6 feet, depending on where you are in the U.S. They're going to come out of that well with your water line, and they run that water line to your basement. So this is your basement on your house. This is in no way to scale, just so you know. But you've got your water pressure tank inside, and they're like this. And what they do is they have this bladder in here, and so water comes in, and it pushes the bladder up and compresses the air, and that's what gives you your PSI. Now, as your water pressure tank is going to be sized according to how much water you use. So if you've got 50, 60 gallons of water, you're going to get a really super big pressure tank, and that's why at that size they usually go with the variable speed pumps. But if your regular house is 5 to 10 gallons a minute, that really doesn't matter, and they'll size it appropriately. So, okay, some theory. Let's get back to what Bert asked. So he's saying that, obviously this pump, so it sounds like to me that Bert just has a pump down here and is pumping up, and then when he turns it on, the water just pushed up and it goes right out to the field. So, a couple things that Bert can do here is he can either, and I'm not sure the size of his pump, he could size it, push water up and out, and go into some of the things we work with customers is a swimming pool, like a 30 to 35 foot swimming pool. For some of our Western customers or people that have really low capacity wells, they use a big swimming pool as kind of a safety valve. And so 30 to 35,000 gallons in there. Actually, I think it's not quite that many. It's like 27,000 gallons in a 35 foot pool. And so that's kind of your, safety net above ground. If you have like a 3 to 5 minute pump, it's constantly pumping water into that pool till it's full. And then you take a smaller submersible pump or just a regular on top of the ground pump, and those are much smaller, a lot cheaper to pump the water into the field system. So he could definitely do that. That would make a heck of a lot of sense for him. And it doesn't have to be the 275 gallon. It could be smaller. It's going to turn on and off. And the other problem is if it rotates on and off too quickly, you can burn the pump out. So, and another thing that might be going on is if Bert's pump is too big, with drip tape, because there's not as much water going through that, the water might go through there so slowly it heats the pump. So, one thing he could do is just bleed off water. So just have water, spewing out, which seems like a waste, but in Florida you seem to have plenty of water down there, so it's not an issue. You're sitting on a great big aquifer. The other thing you could do is, fill some smaller tanks, or as you said, do some IBC totes up higher and then let it drain down. But to me that really doesn't make sense, because you're still going to have to be filling those rather frequently. So I'd rather go with like even 4 or 5 IBC tanks in a row, and just hook them all together. If you can put a quick connect in there and like a 1.5 inch, 2 inch line off that, and then just hook them all together. So the pump is just constantly pulling out of all 4 or 5 of those at a time. They're all gradually going down, and then you just figure out how many gallons per minute you're going to be, watering, how big the farm is. That's kind of the whole formula there to figure that out. So. I hope that helped. I hope that kind of gave you a little bit of an idea of what you might be able to do there, what can be done. Obviously, if you think you're not going to have too much water, then you could put the whole farm on drip at one time and just always have it when the drip's on. It's irrigating everything on the farm, and that way you're pulling plenty of water to make sure that's happening. So that was kind of what I would recommend.